All right, so welcome everybody to our coaching show. We get together on Tuesdays, and we get together on Tuesdays and talk about content creation specifically for people that are focused on Second Amendment and gun-related topics. So tonight we had a little bit of a different live broadcast time. So we'll see. We do this normally as a live show on Tuesday mornings. We're going live here a little bit late, so we'll see how many people join us for the live conversation. But for those of you who are joining us for the show as a podcast or in the future, feel free to leave comments. This is interactive, and when it's interactive through time. So we post this show on Tuesdays when we host it live. It's streamed, and there's a lot of people who join us for that portion of it. But then it goes up on the various platforms, and people can comment there, and all those comments continue to be part of the show, and that continues on in the future. So continue to be part of the show, or jump in and be part of the show at whatever point in time you are experiencing it. And that also means you can join us on Tuesdays when a current show is happening and bring us questions or concerns or topics from an older show if you'd like. All right, well, that being said, we're in the middle of a 6-part series, maybe 7-part series, talking about advanced topics, or at least talking about the topics that we always talk about, but with an advanced or an intermediate perspective. And I guess I'll shut up here and let Clover say hey, and we'll see if anybody's joining us out there.
Yeah, good to be here. Hey, hopefully some folks jump in. Community building today. I don't know. I don't know how advanced, intermediate or advanced we could get with community building necessarily, because that's one of the things that kind of depends on the community and the style and the setup and what you're trying to do and accomplish as far as getting specific with things. All too often we talk in kind of broad strokes and generalities, but either way, I've got some definitely got some thoughts. We've definitely been parts of communities in the past, and currently still are, and will be probably even more so in the future. So got the experience to gab about it, if nothing else.
So let me ask you something while I'm thinking about it. When it says GunTuber Academy, you have to change that, or is that like a profile you can jump between?
Here on the screen?
Yeah, on StreamYard. Is that like a profile that you jump into?
No, I have to change the name every single time.
And then change the icon appropriately? I just thought maybe there was a profile that you were switching between.
No, now there is on the, as far as the,
when you're broadcasting,
branding, there's branding when I broadcast. I can just switch over to my branding, and all my settings from the last stream under that brand are there. But for the user or whatever, you got to change that every freaking time.
And it happens, and it's every time you jump into somebody else's show, it's the same. So
it is. Weird. Yeah, like I'll get into Ghost tonight, and it'll be GunTuber Academy, so I have to change it. I wish they could, and you would think they could integrate the branding into the user side of it somehow pretty easy.
Yeah, give us some profiles, right? Okay, sorry, just don't want to go on a tangent there, but I was curious because I have to do the same thing all the time. All right, so I'm going to go back and talk about some of the things that this series is about. And of course, we asked the robots, we do everything the robot says. So we asked the robots for an intermediate series on content creation in 2023, specifically for Second Amendment content creators, I believe, and came up with fundamentals. We talked about that already, technical skills, monetization, community building, as Clover said, that's what we're doing today. Next week, it'll be mental health and lifestyle, then trends and future outlook. We'll talk about special episodes, and then some advanced tactics. Lastly, interviews. So I guess I have no idea how to count. But the community building portion, it says engagement metrics that matter, how to measure real engagement, and why likes aren't everything. The next point is building a loyal community, strategies to grow and nurture your audience, and then collaborations and networking, how to do it right. So first off, if we look at what the robot came up with for community building: engagement metrics that matter. So understanding how to understand, building a loyal community, and then collaboration and networking. Is there anything that you'd add or that came to mind that is not that that's not included here? You're muted. So Sanab is saying he was going to build a community this morning, but it's too late at this point. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that it did talk about was kind of the foundational thing of like where the community exists, right? Like that's great to have the metrics, and then talk about the engagement and then collaboration amongst and with that community and other things. But like where does your community exist? Is it platform centric? Is it website centric? Is it forum centric? Is it um, newsletter centric in some way? Do you have a Facebook group? What's going on with it, right? Because I mean, you can have a broader community, I guess, under your brand, your channel, whatever. But the, there are communities inside other communities, so to speak. So, like everybody kind of has their own island or whatever, right? Um, but or their own plot of land, whatever you may be, and then together you make up a county or a region, and the county, and then the region, and then a state, and then that type of
Well, are you
mentality.
saying that like you're going to use your social platform as a factor in the community? Like people that are on YouTube, or you're going to search for a YouTube community, or I mean, I
Well,
don't know. Or is that what you're asking?
you definitely get people. I think the vast majority of people stumble into a community. Um, but there are people out there that I think I see it more with more the newer crowd, like just getting into firearms or something like that, um, that are looking for a community. So having that out there and available, I think is important for that aspect because I don't know. I mean, a community is beneficial in a lot of different ways. We'll probably get into some of those, but um,
Well, without getting
bringing
on too
in,
much of a topic, I'm just going to take a second and reel you in because I think you had a great point there. That I asked you what the robot missed here, and it went
yeah,
straight to metrics, building a community, and then continue collaborations and networking. And it's when it says building a loyal community, I guess strategies to grow and nurture your audience. So what you're saying is, I think, at least a portion of what you're saying there is, where are you building this thing? Like, where are you putting down roots? And I think that's
yeah,
a valid piece because
yeah,
um, I wasn't trying to challenge you. They're just trying to clarify. Because if you're, let's say, comfortable with, I don't know, reading or writing or talking or pictures or video or whatever it is, audio, whatever it is, that there's other stuff too, right? Creating
mhm,
in other ways,
yeah,
then do what you're comfortable in. But at the same time, we're talking advanced here. So understanding that you can build a community in a way or in a place, or however you want to say, like on a platform, or at
right,
least, nobody's crazy. Nobody's doing it on one platform, but, on the platforms that are, you know, lean towards your comfort zones. It's just like anything. If you're going to stay in your comfort zone, yeah, there's some advantage there, but at the same time, then you're limited to what's in your comfort zone. Now, if your comfort zone is the biggest portion of the community, great. But we're talking about Second Amendment advocacy. That's not. It doesn't. There's not the largest portion of any community. We're the few of other communities, right? But if you're looking at guns in general, yeah, you can have a pretty big group there, but then you got to start focusing, niching down to something. Otherwise, it's hard to keep people's attention from just general gun talk. But
right.
anyway, so
Unless you have, like I said, like those sub communities, right? Like
well,
there's,
I guess that's what I was saying. If you get too
yeah,
comfortable in your sub community, let's say shotguns, right? Then you're just not going to really talk to. I mean, I do this all the time. I hardly ever talk to hunters. I mean, I don't got nothing against hunting. I don't really hunt that much, but I find it interesting, but I don't passionately talk about it constantly or anything. I definitely don't.
Right.
I own a bolt rifle or two. It's not like I have a bolt rifle for every hunt or anything, or even a couple of bolt rifles on, you know, as options for the next hunt kind of thing, or talk about stalking or gear, any of that stuff. But there's people that do. So that's, I guess, what I was getting at is if we get too niche down, then we're comfortable for sure. We might be really good at whatever we're doing, but then are we really strategically or tactically getting as many people in there as we should? Not could, but should, right? Like you can do anything to get viewers, but we know about that. But we're talking about viewers that we should be getting, but we're missing because maybe we're just on YouTube or we're only doing gear. I don't know, whatever. We're talking too much about 2A. That's easy to get people annoyed about.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I jumped into a live stream and I forgot now whose it was. Um, but I remember he's about the same size as I am, or the main channel, and he had 35, I think, on his live stream when I jumped in, or something like that. And it dawned on me because you're talking about communities all too often. You talk about me and you, and we see Gizzard out there in RTAC and Snob and She Fires and all of those. We, the ones I just mentioned, have some crossover in our community and who is in our community, and there's some you know common denominators. Crossovers is the best word. But anyway, I was in this other one, and after about 2 or 3 minutes, it dawns on me. There shows 35 people in this chat. There's at least, I would say, 18 to 20. It had been close to 20 that were commenting live, and I didn't know any of them. Have never, if I mean, it was a fleeting thing if they've ever commented on a video of mine, uh, and a fleeting thing if they've ever shown up, and not just a live chat of mine, but any type of live stream that I've ever been a part of out in the like I recognize none of the names. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Because we have this misconception and it comes from when you talk collab, inevitably people think, oh, I could get with a big channel and get some shout outs and I'm gonna grow. And it's like, not necessarily. And if you think you are, that's a prime example of how it really doesn't work. Is you know we think we share far more than we actually do. And if you ever get into a situation like that, like I said, it's few and far between because for the most part, I hang out with the people within, I guess, my sphere or my larger community anyway. Um, that I like, that I love, that I trust, that have known me the longest, that sort of thing. Um, and so, would I deviate outside of that to some newer creator or somebody I just found, or I'm just, checking somebody out? It's always interesting to see that because it gives me a different perspective that I need to not fall into this trap that, we're saturated. Yeah, okay, you may get 20, 25, 30, you know, people out there in a live stream, which is, decent depending on the size of the channel that you are. But the reality of that is at any given time, there's somebody doing that with the same 20, 25, 30, whatever people, same number of people that are a completely different set of people. So, like, how do is there a way to pull them across? Is there a way to cross pollinate, I guess, more with the community aspect of things. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just posing the question. Maybe that comes through collabs. Maybe that comes through. Quite honestly, I think if nothing else, it comes from uh, viewer driven, uh, organic means. You've got viewers that watch are a part of that cross pollination that lets other people in other chats and on other channels and in other sub communities, let's just say, uh, know about other. creators and other things that are going on. So, um, yeah, I don't know if that made any sense or not, but
Well, these are topics, and we don't script this, as you might be able to tell. We just talk because, like Clover said, we've got experience doing this. We have an interest in getting the information out there, and we don't really have what's trying to say, like a dogma or something that we're trying to push. I don't know if that's the right word, but we don't really care how you're going to do it or what. But we're just trying to, we have a lot of experience with our own projects, and then seeing other people do stuff, and people share with us often, back behind the scenes and stuff like that. So I guess, dang, there was something I was going to bring up, and I was jumping over to see if Cape Gunworks has their show up yet. But you were talking about some stuff, and that made me think about community building. In that, dang it, I should have wrote it down. It was doing pretty good for a while there. Made notes because as you're saying stuff and going off, I'm trying not to interrupt, but then you'll come up with, or you'll trigger things that make me think of something. Um, let's see. So we're talking about community building, and you were just talking about being on the platforms and trying to get people to mix. I guess my direct answer to the idea of joining audiences is, that's fine, but there's not um, an ocean in a bunch of buckets. You can pull a bucket from an ocean, but you're not going to pull and you're trying to pull from another bucket is just a whole nother strategy than just continuing to pull out of the ocean. So if you're looking to grow, or if you're looking to achieve something, is first off community building, right? That doesn't necessarily mean growth. Community building means finding people that are, like Snob was kind of getting to with one of his comments here. You don't go, he was saying you have a city, a neighborhood, and then your block, right? So looking at it locally, you've got the city that you're all in. You've got that neighborhood which has a little bit more interest in about each other, and they know each other because they see each other quite a bit. And then you got your block, who you may be really intimate with. And then he went on to say, if you go to the house, you don't go to the house 6 blocks away in your neighborhood to borrow a cup of sugar. You go to the house just down the block that you know much better than somebody you've only met a few times. So with that, when we're talking about community, especially for the intermediate, you need people that are going to be around for a while. So one of the things Clover said earlier, and I wish I should have put it in the notes, was, or so I didn't want to interrupt him, but I wanted to address it later on the show, is, welcome to time. When you've been around for a while, you start to find people that, okay, so if you've been around for 5 years, there's going to be people that have been around for 4 years, and then there's going to be people that have been around for 3 years, and there's going to be people that have been around for 2 years, and then I guess I should say those people that will be around for 4 years, period. So they'll be gone, and then there's people that'll be around for just 3 years, and then there'll be people that are just around for 2 years, and then there's people that are just around for a year, and that's just the way of the world, right? We know
and
people
and
have relationships.
and I think it's important to point out the extreme end of that. That there's people that will be around for 2 minutes.
I guess so, but there'll also be people that we know the rest of our lives, right? So
This
we
is
got
true. Yeah,
some
yeah.
mix of that, and you
But you
can you
have to
can
be.
you can
Yeah.
determine that if you put out a net, you're going to catch different than if you put out a bait, right? And that's different
Hmm.
than if you go down and hang
Yep.
out and meet the fish and start petting them and don't kill them. You know what I mean? And just don't think of them as victims, or don't think of them as what's the word, sponsors or something. Don't think of them as the meal ticket, but think of them as, hey, we're trying to
Well,
accomplish something here, and let's go down and meet what people
there's
are
a
going on. And once you know people, it's a whole different relationship.
there's a difference between, and as creators uh, we tend to we tend to bait, right? Put bait on a hook, throw it in the water. We tend to throw out a net, that sort of thing, rather than pull like a Jacques Cousteau and use sonar and cameras and imaging and just watch,
Yeah, that's
right?
a
Just
great idea.
watch
Great
what
point.
our
Yeah.
followers are going on and going, oh, look, there's 18 bluefish and 18 redfish and
Well, in this
16 big
case,
fish and
community, I'd
14
say
little.
watch what our community is doing. Watch what's
That's what
going
I'm
on in our
saying.
community. Yeah.
You're watching the school of fish rather than trying to catch the school of fish. And by watching those within your community, you can get an idea of what that community likes, what that community doesn't like, what it's comprised of. Is it mostly people that like revolvers? Is it mostly people that, oh my God, like 9mm God forbid. What does that community make up? Right?
Well, it's also what that
Have
community
you got a
needs.
larger than average number of like females in the community, or younger or older people? You know, and
Right.
that makes a big difference when you're tailoring, when you're setting up the idea of the bait and the net, right? If you know what that group of your existing community is comprised of. So taking
Well,
a
I'm
look
gonna.
and doing that research, I think it can be very beneficial.
Well, all right. We're again. I think we're talking about two different things because when we're talking community, I
Maybe.
definitely don't think size is a virtue. When you have an audience, you can talk about size and you can talk about demographics and stuff. But in community, you need people that are whatever. Like I say, you need to have a goal. So if your project has a goal and it's simply growth, then you need an audience. But if your project that you're putting your time and effort into has a goal in mind, like constitutional carry at your state, or removal of the NFA, or education so that we don't have people using the deaths associated with suicide against gun owners, or awareness or clarification of the different court cases. If you've got some specific thing that you think you've got an expertise or a way that that you can add, contribute. If you just want to shine light on something, and it could be flashlight reviews or something, fine. But even with flashlight reviews, you're going to have a much smaller audience. So what we're talking about is much smaller groups of people that are interested in this, and it's just hopeless to try to find a giant audience for these kind of projects. So when I'm talking about community, again, I'm saying you've got your platforms. Or I guess where I was going with this is you got your platforms that you're comfortable on, and you've got what content you're creating. But then you've also got this community that's out there. And what I'd suggest is, like Clover said, observing, understanding, and that's probably part of the engaging metrics that matter. To use some tools that we
Yeah, I
have as
think so.
content creators to learn from your audience, because that's where you get the actual data from. But use your audience as a measure or a gauge, and your awareness of what's going on in the rest of the community, and talking to other content creators. Find out what the community needs. And again, if it's a scoreboard, I really think the community needs a scoreboard. If I go to Vegas, I don't have to worry about anything. I can walk into any casino, I guess, sports book or whatever it's called, and I can find out the greyhound races and the football scores and whatever the hell you could possibly bet on is going to be on a board on the wall. And once I get understand how that board works, I just understand that it exists. I pay no attention to it, but from what I assume, you can figure out all these different scores, and you can get the results of all your betting up there. Well, why don't we have that for 2A? I really think we need that for all these different court cases, all these different challenges, all these different circuit courts. I think there should be a fairly easy to navigate, consistent, updated project that isn't relying on any of the organizations that rely on your money, right? That's just an open source community uh, organized thing that just happens. But so that's one of my projects that I think is important. That's not going to get a bunch of attention. I'm not going to get a bunch of people jumping on board. Or if I did, it would be a happenstance. It'd be a unique situation. Most of the time, people with specific projects like that, you're going to look for what your project needs and what the community needs. So now you know what the community needs. You're trying to address that. What do you need to accomplish that? So your community might be a programmer. Your community might be a couple of people that are interested in lawsuits, and then a couple of people that are interested in maybe their state's issues and are want to help get that to the national level. And that could be the community that you need for that project, or I need for my project. But if your project is talking about all the suicide prevention and suicide awareness projects that are out there to help Brooke and Block Talk America and others that are working on that, then you've got, what do you need? You need a website person. You need this. You need that. You need a something. But we're talking about community, and that's, I guess, as intermediate project creator, content creators. I'm hoping that we're thinking of more than just reach and more than just audience when we're talking community, because really we are either observing, we're going somewhere, or we're treading water, right? I don't think you need to observe, but you can either be going nowhere or you could be going somewhere. And hopefully, if you're going somewhere, it's what I'm hoping to give us some tools to and some encouragement to do that. So engagement metrics that matter, how to measure real engagement, the better the platform, or the platforms that you choose, they're going to get better or worse metrics. YouTube is incredible. Um, is there anything that's, what would you say comes next? Facebook, I guess.
Yeah, Facebook's got some pretty good metrics. Yeah, that's and it rightfully so with YouTube. Just simply because of Google. And what's interesting about that is I don't think it's even close between Facebook and Google. Like Google is light years ahead, and then from Facebook to anything else behind it is light years. I mean, it's pretty insane. But here's the thing. I mean, the computer says metrics, and so don't think when when we think like analytics and metrics and stuff, right? We think, oh, give us this information, give us this information. Again, I fall back to the what you were saying, what I said. If you observe, you can obtain your own metrics and your own information just by kind of observing what your audience does. You may be on a, you may have some type of forum or something you're a part of, or some type of a message board, old school message board. Those types of things do still exist, and there can be some really loyal audiences, communities, I should say, right? Because you got conversation going back and forth and other things. Communities that are built out of that, that have zero metrics. Like they literally they're running on old antiquated software or whatever the case may be, cheap freebie shareware stuff and whatever open source, and they literally don't have, they don't have any metrics. But that doesn't mean you can't go, you know scrolling through those feeds at some point or whatever, those threads, and go, oh man, check this out. When, every time I mention this, or every time I, talk about that, or, whatever, these three people, right, are always there. They always, they're always commenting. They're always helping with good advice. They're always interested in what's going on with, my projects and my channels. And so that helps you. You can still identify, you can still narrow that down, and maybe there are even more criteria that you can kind of extrapolate from that, right, pull out of that and look at. But at the very least, engagement is something that you can kind of get a feel for without having to, having a platform spoon feed you numbers, so to speak.
I guess what I was thinking too is that there's no way to describe. It's like YouTube's a Cadillac or a fancy car. I don't know what a fancy car is anymore. Let's say a Mercedes. I don't know, whatever a fancy car is. And
Oh,
then,
YouTube would be a supercar compared to anything
well, I
else,
was
but
just
I
going to
hear
say,
you.
and then if Facebook is like maybe a bicycle or something, and then everything else is like walking. Like there's just such a gap. When we say they're better, it's not like, oh, it's got 3 or 4 extra buttons. Like Google set the, there's not even the gold standard. There's just so much more data here. So that's the thing. And the people you'll see are successful over here because one of the reasons they're able to be successful over here is because of the data. And there's some other reasons, like you can have multiple channels, so you can A/B test things. You can test things on one channel and do all your successful stuff on a single entity. But do trial runs, push your big files somewhere else. We do stuff
Yep.
kind of stuff like that all the time. So some platforms really lame about that. Um, so anyway, the I was going to get at that. The other platforms are useful and they've got their advantages and disadvantages. And I'm not trying to rag on them. I'm just saying, you, especially with intermediate, you're not dealing with a single thing, or a person who's only able to deal with one at a time. So get on YouTube and understand what YouTube allows you to do, and get into it. Understand those metrics. It's a super valuable part of YouTube, the inside your control panel. Once you understand how your channel reacts, talk to other people, collaborate, right? Find out with people who are willing to share about it, how their channel's reacting and their audiences and the people that deal with their channel. And then you can extrapolate that. Is that the right word? To other platforms. They're not exactly the same, but people behave the same way. So if you start to see whatever patterns or tendencies on one platform where you can track it, then it's pretty much like whatever's happening over on Gunstreamer or GunTube.org is usually some scaled down version of what's happening over here. Audiences still do the same thing. They're going to be interested in the same thing. And sometimes it's super useful. You find what's super useful or super, what's the word, successful on YouTube, and make your version of it over on one of the other platforms that they're not getting love from whatever giant channel isn't got time to go on the smaller platforms. Like that's one way to kind of capitalize, I think, on what I'm trying to suggest. Well, we're halfway in. So then building a loyal community, strategies to grow and nurture your audience. How do you nurture your audiences?
Good question. Um, I think I think first of all, I mean, loyalty and loyalty and respect kind of go hand in hand. And one of the things, like if you expect, folks in that, community, first of all, I mean, you've got varying types of people that are on your channel and around your projects for varying types of reasons. The vast majority of which are going to be really selfish people. The most selfish being probably the ones that troll you all the time. Um, but
Oh, I thought you were going to say the most selfish were 9mm shooters.
right. Um, but there's a certain amount. I mean, those don't obviously don't respect you, and I think the trolls don't even respect themselves to an extent. Um, that's why they do what they do. It gives them that much needed
Well, I'm gonna.
self-absorbed ego boost. Anyway, but if you respect, try to respect those in the community, then the ones in that community will, I think, respect you. I think being real is a part of it. To get the most loyal folks, I think that's what it requires. Um, and for the most part, the most loyal, um, they're looking for nothing. Not they're not really looking for anything. This is my experience. Um, it's tough because you'll say, "Hey, we're going to do this extra or that extra, or maybe we'll do this giveaway or do that giveaway." I'll give a prime example with this. And it can get frustrating because especially when you've got folks in the community that are super loyal and you want to say thank you, show your appreciation for them being loyal. And it's like they seriously, like no thanks necessary. And I mean, they absolutely 100% mean that. The most loyals do. And a great example of that is when I did the FRN patch game show night. Everybody that won that night, and I'm pretty sure everybody, I don't know for a fact, and you can always go back and watch that if you want. I'm not going to, but you can. Um, but I think pretty much everybody that won a patch gifted it to somebody else. Now, everybody that was in that live stream ended up winning a patch, and then some people that weren't. Um, but it's like if everybody in the live stream won a patch anyway, then why didn't you just keep it for yourself? And it's because they weren't self-absorbed. They weren't selfish, and that's why I led off saying that the vast majority of folks you're going to find, whether it's in your community or adjacent, or maybe even just close, or maybe they're a faux part of your community. They're just there to try to infiltrate and gain some kind of data to be able to troll you even more. Um, it's rampant with selfish people, and um, that's one of the identifiers that you're going to find really quickly is your most loyal people. There's such a stark contrast between those people and even the average person in the community. So, um, now the question the robots put forward was like, how do you nurture that? How do you grow that? And I think being that type of person yourself is important, and that's why I always say, we obviously we can't be a part of everybody's community, and we can't be a part of especially everybody's support structure and mechanism. And that's why I said it kind of falls on us to have communities within communities type situations. Is that so we can still have some crossover, but not everybody is 100% involved with everybody because there's not enough hours in the day to do that. And ultimately, if you pull away from your main projects because you're so focused on the community aspect, and I have done this before. That's why I know it's true. Um, if you pull back and put way too much focus into the community, whether that's helping others, supporting others, whatever the case may be, um, it can be a detriment to your projects and what you have going on. So you've got to find that happy balance. But I think if you articulate that fact to the folks out there, yes, again, the vast majority of people probably are going to be selfish and they're not going to understand it, but the most loyal will. Um, and then as far as, like I said, as far as being, I just go back to the whole nurturing or how do you grow more loyal folks in your community. And I think that's by being loyal and respectful and what have you yourself. And obviously by not liking 9 millimeter because that can hurt you big time.
I was going to say the negative side of the big platforms are the trolls out there, and I mean, there's trolls everywhere, and the trolls can be that's just a luck of the draw, I guess, or whatever they feel like doing that day. But essentially, they're just I think there's more of them on the larger platforms because an element of it is they want to perform, but they don't have the interest to create a show to perform on. They don't that's not the level they want to perform at, so they'll consider the shared resource of the live comments, a place to perform, especially when they find a person or a host, I guess, or a community, I guess, that isn't going to just be like zero tolerance or whatever, like be weird and get kicked out, um, because then it gives them a place to, to do their thing. So, and uh, depending on what you're trying to get accomplished, that can be, if it's just entertaining. I mean, we know people who encourage that essentially and kind of get the thrill out of the interaction with that, and certainly like the attention and the hits and the views or whatever that happen when it's like, oh, did you hear what happened on so and so show and the blah 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 when somebody came in. There's people that like that element of it, and if you're attempting to get something done, then is that a distraction from it? Or if your goal is to just fart around and have a conversation every week, every day, whatever it often the schedule is, then that just becomes part of it, really. But on the smaller platforms, again, the disadvantage is you almost have no control over banning or blocking or stuff like that. It can
This
be
is
really
true. Yeah.
frustrating.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot with, I mean,
And
at
we
best,
do this all the time with Tony, but I know that I've noticed. I'm going to just say this because we get some females that watch this show, but as dudes, we don't even think about the weirdness that happens when you're just a girl online. Like no matter
oh,
what.
yeah, I totally do. But I've worked with and helped enough of the female creators out there and stuff that I've seen their comment sections and help it out with certain things, and I've seen their live streams and their other. So yeah, and even have done mod, been mod and chat and occasionally with. Yeah, it's a whole different thing. We get a lot of your face is ugly, or something like, but that's a whole different thing than some of the solicitations and other weirdo stuff that the women get. They get a whole different breed of troll for sure.
And then, well, something you were thinking about there made me think about. Well, just let me bring it up. So going back to the starred comments, there are a bunch of people joining us, even though we're hosting at a weird time, we're streaming at a weird time. So thanks everybody for adapting to our schedule. I don't know if we mentioned it last week, so Thanks for bending along, and I flipped it back and forth to like accidentally 10:30 tonight for about an hour, so that was a mistake. Artak is saying, what options should we use when making videos with firearm content, and then, or wait, when used when mark, wait, marking our videos with firearms content, and then maybe dangerous action, not to get
Uh,
yellow dollar sign. So essentially, on YouTube specifically, what can we do?
mm.
What options are there when you're
So the
creating content with a firearm to get monetized?
man, so the first thing you got to do is adhere to policy, right? And in order to do that, you have to understand policy. And um, man, I don't know if this is an advanced thing that we could at some point get into or not. Um, but yeah, you have to be able to understand policy, which I get it is difficult. That's why I've spent going on 6 years now. I don't even know 5 years to be able to have the understanding that I have. Um, then you have to be able to produce the best video to adhere to said policies. Just simply seeing this question, I can, and I'm not saying RTAC out there is assuming anything, right? I'm not projecting this onto RTAC. So let me say that straight up. I'm just using this question as an example of how creators can view this situation. That they think if they simply mark something in the self certification, this, that, or the other, that it's going to magically fix a problem. And the declarations you make inside self certification, right? Um, if you have things in your are irrelevant if you have things in your video going on, right? So take care of that first. It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out, right? It's kind of like um, if you take a really bad audio track, right? Really bad audio recording, and then you run it through an amplifier. Well, you're going to have a really bad amplified audio track, right? Like you're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to get the source material right first. Then once you do that, RTAC out there is spot on and absolutely correct. You need to go through those sections. All too often, as gun tubers, what I see is, and especially gun tubers that may say get into any political stuff with 2A related or adjacent or more 2A leaning and adjacent gun tuber channels. It can be this way too. But you got to go through each one of those sections. All too often, I see, oh, they think, well, I'm 2A or I'm gun or I'm whatever, firearm. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to check the little firearm policy portion and I'm going to continue. Well, you just skipped over all these other things that any of those other things could be in your video. Like if you've got a video with your wife in a skimpy bikini showing all kinds of stuff running around, you know, then that could be problematic under a whole other section of the self certification policy. If you like to curse, that could be a whole other problem in a whole other section. If you're talking about self defense and you're showing images or even hunting and you're showing images that are, somewhat graphic in nature, to pictures of violence, things of that, that's a whole other section. But at a very basic level, if you do have things pretty much nailed down, you're sticking as close to that firearm niche and the firearm policy portion or firearm section of policy as close as you possibly can. Then the two things that absolutely apply is going to be making sure that you declare inside the firearm and then you declare inside the harmful and dangerous acts. If there's any handling of firearms, especially if there's any live fire. But again, it goes back to, you need to make it very clear the context in your videos, what's happening and what you're doing. Very clear. So we're out on a range. That can be an on-screen image that says that. You can say that verbally. Hey, we're out on the range, or hey, we're out in the woods, even, right? Um, Safety, reinforcing safety. Got my eyes and ears on, right? Is that a given? Yeah. And you're going to get flack. We talked about trolls a second ago. You're going to get flack in the comments about, oh, we know it. You're safe. Everything's safe. Why do you got to show it cleared? Why do you got to do this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, just dismiss the idiots and the trolls. They're not creators. They don't have to deal with YouTube and YouTube policy. And so they don't understand, and they never will, why you're doing what you're doing. You're doing it so that um, not just YouTube, but anybody else watching that video who is completely oblivious or uneducated has more context about what's going on. This is not just some Yahoo redneck screwing around with a firearm in the backyard. This is somebody that's taken the time to explain that safety protocols are in play, that this is a controlled environment, that they know what they're doing, right? Um, and that's a much different context, much different context. So I rambled on probably a little bit longer than I needed to address that, but it's a very common thing. I have to talk about that regularly with folks. But if you're having issues, RTAC, reach out, man. We can go through your channel and your videos and give you some more specific pointers. Maybe even jump in a after chat at some point.
So that was like a specific answer. My answer is don't try to monetize gun stuff. So you need to stay within YouTube policy if it's like what Cutler was saying with hunting or something they consider dangerous or something. But don't try to monetize it. You're not going to make any money on YouTube anyway. There's a million other ways to monetize what you're doing, uh, or do something else that you monetize essentially, and let the gun stuff be the gun stuff. But
I
that's I think of that as trying to push a boat upriver. You can do it. You can throw a rope on it and drag it upriver. It's just not as much fun as going with the current.
Yeah, but you've got to be careful. Um, I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying because I don't monetize, for example, the podcast, and that gives me the freedom to talk about certain things on the podcast and not have to worry about it. That also gives me some leadway when it comes to potentially pushing boundaries on even on the community side of things a little bit. And But that being said, and the really long form live stream stuff really doesn't make a whole lot of ad money anyway on YouTube. Shorts doesn't make any money. Long stuff doesn't make any money, and it's for most people. Let's say it's fairly difficult to make ad money with the Goldilocks content there in the middle, right? The normal, what I would call the normal produced content. That being said, except for slumps, cycles, and downturns, which we are in one of those now, by the way, on YouTube, should start pulling out, uh, this next month or so,
Like
and
the
it'll,
seasonal and election year, the year before an election year, and the
mhm.
seasonal.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
we're
and an
definitely in a
economy
slump,
one.
and we're I had this conversation with one of my YouTube contacts just a few days ago, as a matter of fact, and he was like, yeah, we're getting it from every niche, every creator in every niche imaginable about ad dollars right now. That being said, in normal or good times of the cycle and times of the year, I've got, I don't know, 2,000 videos. I don't know, at any given time, I've got hundreds of videos that are monetized with decent um, CPMs, cost per meal, or whatever. Um, but again, I've got a multitude of videos, and then I've spent years, literally years, working to make sure that those videos fall within the guidelines in a way that they get good advertising rates. So um, it, it's if you can get a sponsor, if you can get some some type of some other revenue generating mechanism in play, you know. But for me, it's like this: like I I don't mind double dipping. Like the people that it aggravates me is the ones that they want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to do exactly what they want to do without abiding by any YouTube policies at all. And then they want to have sponsorship money for that video, plus they want to have the ad money on top of it. And it's like, no, just no. And I say no because I know what it takes and to produce content that is as compliant within our GunTuber niche anyway, that is as compliant as it possibly can be when it comes to ad money and monetization. And it does require a little bit of effort and a little bit of work. To me, um, overall, it's worth that effort, right? Now, everybody has to make that call for themselves. To me, it's overall worth that effort um, for a couple of reasons. Um, Number one, it's overall worth that effort because of some of the other side hustles and side projects and other things that most of which I'm under NDA and I can't even talk about that I do that I pretty much got to stay compliant anyway, right? Um, but then also, again, I go back to the key. One of the keys. I'm not going to say the key, but one of the keys at staying compliant is context. Make sure you add as much information as possible. Everything is contextually accurate. You're factually accurate when you're using terminology and other things. Um, and if you do that, that's not only beneficial to the platform in the sense of policy by having that added information and that added context. It's also beneficial to the first time firearm owner out there. Maybe somebody's not even a firearm owner yet. Maybe they just now you're the very first GunTuber video they pulled up. They hit a search term in YouTube for whatever reason, you rocked that search term and they had a fleeting thought or was talking with somebody or maybe their neighbor got broken into last night and they've never once thought about owning a firearm. And they did a little quick Google foo this morning, and guess whose video popped up? Yours, right? Would it be nice if you had that extra context and that extra information so maybe that person could better understand the size and the scope and the feel and all the various moving parts and pieces of I guess firearm ownership and stuff, right? Would that be more beneficial to them to have that added information and context? I contend that it would. And so, you know, that's where my stance is. I'm going to continue to do it that way regardless. But, gee, that being said, like I said, that being said, exactly what you're talking about with my podcast, I just turned the monetization off altogether. Get that stuff sponsored, turn the monetization off, and run with it. And the advertising on the audio podcast side for my podcast, those advertisers don't care, and those platforms so far don't care. They just do it. They just give you the money. They show me the money.
So I've been unmuted, but I added a new set of speakers. Does that give you? Are you getting weird feedback or echo or anything?
I'm not hearing anything.
Oh
No.
man, these are super loud. I'm half deaf, so these are super loud. Awesome. So I'm going to move on because otherwise Clover will keep talking about this forever and ever.
Oh
'Cause
my
it's
God, I will. You're
well,
right. I love that topic.
then well, Artag brought it on himself by saying that. So then Snob was saying, I can tell you what platform is dead last. What do you think? What is your vote for what Snob thinks is the last platform?
He's talking about Amazon. That's what he's talking about.
Oh, you mean for analytics?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all right, actually. I'm going to say all those fake video hosting platforms, pretty much any of them are just weak compared to
Oh my God, the manipulation, right, that can happen with, we talk about the gun streamers and the gun tubes and the huge tubes and the Brighteons and the things like that, right? The alternative gun tuber platforms. And oh my God, the manipulations and the other things that can be done with data and things on those is horrendous. So I agree with you. I think he was more being funny. Um, to the point of Amazon and the data available on Amazon, then the reason I think Snob's being funny more than anything is the other night with the reports we ran and went through with Amazon. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier, and I don't remember verbatim what I said, but I remember talking about it. Or sometimes a platform you'll be able to get certain things where you can extrapolate your own data. And with the order reports and stuff, we were looking in the daily order reports and stuff the other day. I think that's one of those situations where, you know, it's not as horrendous as one might seem. So I agree with you that there's far worse platforms out there. Gee.
All right, trying to talk and type, and the mouse doesn't do what you want when you're over here typing. So I think that was all of the starred ones, but if I'm missing something, let me know. Thanks for the only one giving me feedback from New York Outcast. Thanks. So yeah, that's awesome. I got a new set of Amazon Basics speakers actually that are like super heavy, so they must have big magnets or something in them because they're super loud. They're way louder than any other speaker I got around here. I've been using my wide monitor, I guess, has speakers in it, and that's about the loudest ones I have. But it's not a TV or nothing. So can you hear that when I was doing that?
Oh yeah,
That
yeah,
went through
yeah.
the speakers. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
what that was, but something started beeping. So I don't know. Did we? Let's see. The last one is collaborations and networking. How to do it right. I wanted to go back to one of my things. I guess I didn't star it is all. But when you were talking before, and where did I put it? People stick together but staggered. So I was kind of describing, let's say you're in, everybody's in this for a certain amount of time. We're all going to die at some point. That's going to be a final thing, unless we do something really cool. So then, we're going to have our healthy life, and we're going to be able to have our lives, our working life. We're going to have our project lifespans, right? Like there's all these different lifespans that are just set in stone, because we're mammals or whatever, and because we have other things going on in the world. So if you think about your project and you think about how long you're going to be around, seriously think about that. We're talking about intermediate stuff here. Like, I think at the time, by one of the definitions of intermediate might be that you're actually thinking about a goal and you're thinking about an end game, like how you're going to wrap it all up, what you're going to, what all you're going to accomplish. I think it's still pretty intermediate or even beginner to just be uphill. I'm all, looking your head out the window and, just everything's starry eyed, everything's going up. Not that everything can't go up all the time. I mean, ideally, everybody's successful, and ideally, we do nothing but win as we educate and inform more and more people. But, the idea that we're just always going to experience whatever's next is more basic, uh, beginner than having actual objectives and goals and then achieving them and getting another bigger objective and goal. So if you think about it that way, you're going to be around your project, whatever is going to be around for a while. Then the people that participate in your project, besides yourself or besides the core group you've got potentially working on it, depending on what kind of project you've got, some people are out there as a couple, some people are out there as a team, right? There's different ways that people, some are like kind of permanent collaboration, some people are joined at the hip. So there's different ways to look at whatever we're talking about here, but hopefully we're talking about something Second Amendment focused, gun related, or whatever. You're going to have an audience. That's another component to this thing, or the community that you're creating, right? All of that. You're going to have your allies and your adversaries. They're going to have spans also. So when you start thinking about that, that's just all what I'm really trying to get at is start thinking about that. And when I mentioned before that you're going to have some people, let's say your lifespan of your project is going to be 5 years, or turns out to be 5 years, whatever. If we're looking back at it, it was a 5-year project, or you're planning on it being a 5-year project, however you want to think of it. There's going to be people that have been around, going to be around for the whole thing, maybe even longer, right? They're going to be friends of yours forever, even after the project's done. There's going to be people that are there just for the project because they don't care about you, they care about the project. There's going to be about people that are there for the 4 years of it for whatever reasons. Again, health, interest, you win, and you don't need to be around anymore, whatever, the results or the reasons doesn't matter. But then there's going to be people at 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year, but they're not all starting at the starting line and like stopping a year into it, and then you have less people, and then third year into it you have less people. No, it's not. It's staggered. It's all over the place. So you don't know if your most successful year is going to be at the end. I think often people have your most successful part of a project after the experience and the growth that you would experience, you'd expect after a multi-year project. But sometimes that success happens in the beginning. Some viral thing happens, some right place at the right time set of circumstances happen, and all your growth is at the beginning, or all your size, or whatever you want to call it, scale is at the beginning. And then of course there's something in between. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that if we're talking community building and the metrics and the community, then think about that. Like you can let it happen. You can, I don't want to keep saying observer, because I think of the people that are observing are the people that are literally just watching television. But when you're creating a project, you can be adrift, you can be treading water, you can be kind of trying to fight the current, you can be going with the current. I think I've probably experienced all of those. I imagine everyone has just sampled a little bit of all of those. But you've got that that determination, you got that decision to make. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that sometimes when you're sitting there treading water, or you're bucking the current, or maybe when you're just floating down with the current and having a great old time, it's an opportunity to take a second and think about, how long is this river going to go? How long is this rush of water going to, is it from the rain? Is it from the winter runoff? How long is this going to last? Or how long do I have to tread water against this current, right? Anyway, I'm rambling, but I wanted to throw that one out there. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but that was sort of that middle one before we get into the collaboration part. Do we got 90 minutes, or do you want to wrap it up?
If I can get to the, yeah, no, yeah, I try to stay muted when you're going through your stuff, but I say we probably wrap it up. We've got some after. I know we got some after chat stuff to deal with here shortly. Which, by the way, kind of like I'd said about RTAC, if anybody wants to get specific and wants some like 101 stuff, let us know, and we can definitely do things like that uh, privately at your convenience, or in the after chat on a Tuesday after one of these. Either way.
Now I think your mic is too hot, because my speakers are so loud. But I'm just kidding.
My mic can't be too hot because I've turned it down. Jeff was the only one. I'm getting tired of people saying that, because Jeff has said that it was too hot the other day, but nobody for 4 podcasts has said anything. And then when I run the playback on the podcast, it sounds fine. And then I turned it down another 40% the other day when Jeff said something. So it's 40% lower than then. So I don't know how it's
No,
still too hot.
he's just talking. I don't know if he's talking shit, or if it is hot when you yell at it. But no, it's way better than
Well,
it
it's going to be
was
hot.
after you.
It's going to be hot when I get. Sorry, I mean, it's going to be. There's no way to filter that. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm
Yeah,
talking louder and
here, when you talk louder, run to the other side of the room. It's simple.
yeah,
Get
and
in a rocking, get in a
if I
rocking
try
chair.
to
Rock backwards every time you yell.
if I try to flip it up, it'll mute. I guess I can put my hand in between the mic and my mouth when I'm screaming, and I can scream like this with my hand like in front of it.
And then it's kind of a weird yelling, but also whispering.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Who
so
knows? Who knows?
but anyway, yeah, it's way better than it was before. All right, so anyway, then yeah, we'll start wrapping it up. As far as collaboration and networking, There's going to be people that are going to stick around. I don't think there's any way to know, right? We're all humans and we all have our lives and stuff. There's been, and I don't even like to think about it because I get sad, but there's been some epic people in the community over the years. I've been doing gun related shit since 1997. I started getting challenged in 2004 to do things differently, and I am so freaking glad that. Oh man, what was his name? I was just thinking of him. Oh man, I'll think of it when I'm not trying to think of it. But this dude from Front Sight was the first one to kind of come up and poke me in the chest and go, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "Oh wait a minute, that's true. I should think outside the box a little bit here and think more about Then yeah. Anyway, so it was one of my first opportunities to start paying attention to more of the community, I guess, and be more open to adapting to the new platforms and stuff. Otherwise, I might have still been one of them weird forum people, stuck on a forum. But that and a couple of other folks back then encouraged the idea of like poking around and looking around. So I guess with the collaborations and stuff and the networking is my suggestion is to not get stagnant and to explore and to stay not so much current because I don't think following the trends helps anybody, but just staying curious and challenging yourself. If you're challenging your own project to do something that you haven't done before, chances are you're going to go off into another realm. I'm going to use some of my own examples so that's the easiest thing to do. Like when I started to publish, I played around with some of the WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get type of software. At the time, that was pretty crude. There was no AI helpers or anything. So it was fairly crude, and you kind of had to know a lot of the proprietary details of the software, which meant a learning curve that wasn't going to help you anywhere else. So, it just demanded a lot of attention that wasn't warranted unless there was a payoff. And I was still playing around with publishing. So then I got into paying for the Adobe package, and it has a publishing software package, I guess the way I say it. So I started using the Adobe Publisher, and then that brought me to meet other people who are writers and to think about things from a different angle besides just video or internet or audio, or so from that publishing and from that book side. And it also brought all kinds of freaking problems. We won't get into it here this late in the show, but it also brings black eyes, broken legs, kicks in the ribs, like sicknesses. With I'm using those as analogies of like, with your projects, you can have projects with problems with funding. You can have project problems with people getting sick of the whole thing and leaving. You can have problems with the whole community getting fickle with the idea and just leaving Second Amendment completely because it's boring. It's not a imminent threat, so they drop it like a wet potato or hot potato. I don't know, however they drop it, and dealing with all those different things are part of it. So I think my suggestion for collaborations, if you go up and think about if somebody came up to you and goes, "Hey, I want to be your best friend," I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, what are you talking about? Like, go hang around, do stuff with people. You'll find out who's approachable, who's interested, who's open, and who's busy, right? Sometimes somebody's just busy. You go up, hey, I want to be your best friend. One, it's a weird question. But, two, if that person's busy, they might not be able to understand what you're trying to ask them. And then you walk away going, that person's unapproachable. So, get out there, do stuff, experience it. What'll happen is people will start coming up to you and you'll be in a network, you'll have collaborations before you know it. I don't know if you want to spin off on that or if you want to just end it up.
Yeah, I say we pull this one and move on. What's the topic next week? Do we have one?
Yeah, robot always that's a topic. Mental health and lifestyle.
Yeah, you
With
mentioned that.
avoiding burnout, work life balance, and imposter syndrome.
Nice, nice. That'll be a good one.
All right. So with that, thanks everybody for joining us at the late hour and being part of the show. If you'd like to join us for conversations at other points, Clover does. When's your next podcast?
Not gonna have anything this week. Actually, I added a podcast yesterday. I had a company reach out to me and they're like, "Do you have a spot for a podcast?" And I'm like, "Seriously?" Like you realize I'm in high demand and like my spots fill up like within a week of scheduling or something, right? Of course, I was joking with them. I did mix them into the end of the season. So we've got 17 episodes this season, apparently, not 16. Um, yeah, this week there's not going to be anything. We'll have a normal video drop this afternoon, though. Wow, it's been like 6 weeks. Finally got some editing capabilities and other things to get that. The last few weeks has been tough with the bad to the bone laptop, kicking the bucket, and everything else going on. Um, so at least everybody out there have that, I suppose. And then next week, once we get back from TriggerCon, yeah, we've got No Handed Shooter. And gosh, go look that dude up on the IGs. He does mainly IG and YouTube Shorts, but No Handed Shooter, Hunter is his name, and then lock grips in the house on Thursday. So No Handed Shooter on Wednesday, lock grips on Thursday of next week.
Looks like I'm probably heading up to GRPC at least for a little bit of it, if the van can handle it, and then that means we'll ditch Saturday's Ask Gun questions till the week after, and yeah, that's pretty much all that'll move for what we're talking about. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to throw a commercial up here for our Gear website store, but I'd also like to mention that both Clover and I have Patreons. Patreon is sort of it's a community, it's a social platform, and it allows people who are creating content to interact with subscribers, people who want to contribute financially as capitalists to the content, to the stuff that they value. So both of us have different levels of support over there. Most of the people on my Patreon are buying us a cup of coffee each month, so essentially $5 a month. Some of them are buying me lunch once a month, and that's $20 a month. All that accumulates, and it pays for our servers, it pays for our software, gives us time to put into projects like this one. So again, we thank you. And we also have YouTube channel memberships. They take a little bit bigger bite. You don't get quite as many tools available for having that interaction, but also brings in that funding and lets us spend time on this stuff. So much appreciated.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.